evening, everyone. Another cold and blustery day in store for our Friday. We'll have to watch for a few flurries and snow showers in the morning and through about lunchtime that could leave a few coatings in some slick spots. Flurries will fade away later in the day, but it stays blustery and cold right into the upcoming weekend. Coming up later in the newscast, we'll talk about my annual winter forecast. Will we finally have a snowy and cold winter? We haven't had one for a while. 21 News starts right now.
Coming up on 21 News, parts of the U.S. are bracing for a massive snowstorm. How much that storm could impact the Mahoning Valley.
Building a connection with the community. Look at one local business that's working with Second Harvest Food Bank to help feed our valley.
And it's the season of giving, and a group of realtors is teaming up with a local nonprofit to give back. A look at their efforts to bring some holiday cheer to families in need.
Locally owned, locally connected. This is 21 News, 11 p.m.
Good evening. Parts of the northeast U.S. are bracing for what officials are calling a potentially dangerous and life-threatening snowstorm.
A state of emergency has been declared for parts of New York, with the Buffalo area expecting up to 5 feet of snow.
The lake effect snow could also impact other parts of the region, including Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Millions of Americans around the Great Lakes are bracing for a winter storm that could dump several inches and even feet of snow in some areas. Parts of New York are already under a state of emergency.
What we're talking about is a major storm. This is considered an extreme event.
The storm is expected to slam Buffalo with up to 5 feet of snow. Officials say hundreds of plows will be out across western New York and tens of thousands of tons of salt will be used to prep the roads. The worst of it will begin Thursday night and last through Sunday morning.
When we're looking at over 4 inches coming down per hour, that can present some significant challenges.
Some areas like Oswego County, New York, are already seeing snowfall. New York State Police posting this photo of 2 spinouts, one involving a semi-truck on I-81, prompting officials to warn drivers to stay off the roads.
This is a snow storm with potentially deadly consequences if people do not do the right thing.
The lake effect storm will impact other parts of the region, including Michigan, northern Ohio, and northwestern Pennsylvania.
The winds are going to steer where the snow is going to go because lake effect snow is caused by the warmer water temperature and the difference between the colder air above it.
In anticipation of the storm, the NFL has moved Sunday's Browns versus Bills game from Buffalo to Detroit. As for how much of that snow is headed our way, we'll check in with Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm in just a bit. Now in Warren, the Public Utilities Committee gathered to educate citizens about their increased energy bills as they continue to be faced with higher energy, electric, and gas bills. The committee brought in representatives from Energy Harbor, Dominion East Ohio Gas, NOPEC, and Ohio Edison to learn how they can get bills down for those affected. Dominion East Ohio reps added Ohio is actually one of the least affected states with those increased bills. Officials pointed to world conditions like the war on Ukraine as the main driver of price hikes.
It's all market value, so there's any number of factors, Europe being one of them, that directly affect the price of our energy. And I hope to educate folks more and we can all learn more about how we can stop that.
Officials even said energy rates could double by summer of 2023 with the additional cost at no control of the companies.
A human trafficking investigation led to the arrest of 2 men, an uncle and his nephew. 18-year-old Seth Thompson and his 31-year-old uncle Michael DeTosto are behind bars accused of possessing child pornography. A search warrant was executed at a Detroit Avenue home this morning after tips came from the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force involving a young Pennsylvania girl.
We seized 3 cell phones, to my knowledge, and several computers, which will be turned over to BCI.
DeTosto is charged with pandering sexually oriented matter involving a minor and pandering obscenity involving a minor. Since Thompson was 17 at the time of the alleged crimes, he was sent to the Juvenile Justice Center, where his charges are expected to be filed.
We're learning new details about a man found dead with gunshot wounds in Bezetta Wednesday night. It was just after 5 Wednesday when police responded to this home on North Park Avenue. That's where they found the man in the backyard with gunshot wounds. The circumstances leading up to the incident are still unclear, but a neighbor who wishes to remain anonymous that called 911 recalls last night's events.
And I look into up my driveway towards the backyard, and I seen seen a guy laying on his back, kind of moving around, moaning, groaning. I heard a few more shots within the time of talking to dispatch.
Bezetta police say they're not ruling anything out at this point and are continuing their investigation. The Trumbull County coroner will release the identity of the victim after family members are notified.
A prominent figure for decades in Mahoning County has decided to step down. After 25 years on the job, a source confirms that County Prosecutor Paul Gaines plans to announce his retirement tomorrow. Gaines was first elected to office in November of 1996 after serving as a Youngstown police officer and becoming an attorney. The next month, on Christmas Eve, Gaines was shot in his home by an intruder working for the mob who did not want him taking office. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi will officially step down as Democratic leader after 2 decades at the top. In a speech on the chamber floor, Pelosi announced her decision to not seek re-election to leadership in the next Congress, but says she plans to continue serving her constituents as a member of Congress. Her decision comes just a day after NBC News and other outlets project that Republicans will flip control of the House. All right, let's head over to Eric now for a check of our weather forecast.
All right, it's cold now. It's going to get even colder as we head towards the weekend. Overnight, pretty quiet weather across the Mahoning and Shenango valleys. Not much more than a stray flurry. Will drop down to 25 degrees overnight tonight. In our qualifier on this Thursday evening in the Ducat Big Dig contest, Susan Romine from Cortland. Susan, you have 21 minutes to call that phone number. It's 1-800-488-9365 and hit option 5. Lake effect is not going to be an issue here tomorrow, but a little weak weather disturbance will pivot through during the morning and midday. Might give us some coatings of snow here and there through about lunchtime. For the rest of the afternoon, maybe a stray flurry. It's going to be blustery and cold all day tomorrow. Temperatures no higher than freezing, but the wind chill will be mostly in the 20s tomorrow and mostly in the teens by tomorrow night and during the course of the upcoming weekend. While the lake effect will continue to crank on Saturday up towards Buffalo, we just have a mix of sun and clouds in our forecast and maybe a stray flurry or two as Sunday gets underway. We still expect a pretty nice warm up next week in the run up to Thanksgiving. Not shorts weather, but hey, we'll take it. And it looks like it'll be dry for the holiday. Coming up in just a handful of minutes, my annual winter forecast. Will this winter be different than the last several, which have been fairly mild and relatively low in the snow department? We'll talk all about it coming up. Derek?
All right, looking forward to that. Thanks, Eric. Up next, how a local home improvement store is working with the Second Harvest Food Bank to create connections around the community.
Plus, trouble with crops in California leads to a national lettuce shortage. How this is impacting businesses right here in the valley.
Closed captioning is made possible by Windows.
One of the true strengths of the Valley is the connection many of our local businesses have with the community. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods has a rich tradition of giving back.
Steve Vesey stopped by their campus in Canfield to find out why Second Harvest Food Bank is on their radar every year.
Until you walk around and see all the massive buildings, it's hard to understand just how big Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods really is. They're a national brand that ships all over the U.S., but the company's never forgotten its roots.
We're fortunate to be part of the Mahoning Valley, and we are very fortunate in the sense that we have an organization like Second Harvest Food Bank.
As the company's grown, so have its partnerships in the community. Everything from sponsoring Little League teams to local VFW chapters and raising nearly $100,000 over the last 10 years for Second Harvest.
The success of our company needs to be shared throughout the valley. They support us. We in turn need to support the valley. And Second Harvest has been that vehicle, one of the vehicles that we're able to contribute towards. We're fortunate. We might not always be so fortunate. So when a neighbor needs a hand, you lend them a hand.
After all, this company's been a big part of this community for a long, long time, and really, this is just an extension of that.
It goes back to some of our founders, attending school downtown at YSU, and then second generation attending school at YSU, and being involved in the community from day one.
It's one of the pillars this company was built on and a defining part of its success to this very day. With more local news, I'm Steve Vesey.
Here in the Valley, 1 out of every 6 people are faced with food insecurity and hunger. The Feed Our Valley campaign aims to bring an end to hunger in our communities. Last year, it raised $187,000 and collected 54,000 pounds of food that was donated to those in need.
You can help in the effort to curb Valley hunger by donating non-perishable food items to any local Sparkle Market. All cash and food donations to the Feed Our Valley campaign stay local. As always, thank you for helping Feed Our Valley.
Since the start of the pandemic, Valley restaurants have had to face hurdle after hurdle. Now, as customers return, a shortage of one important ingredient has some wondering how much more they can take. Don't be surprised if iceberg and romaine lettuce is out of stock at your favorite grocery store. The shortage of leafy greens stems from a parasite wreaking havoc on crops in California. Sweet Melissa's in Boardman says costs have more than quadrupled for them.
Back 2 months ago, I was purchasing lettuce for anywhere from $23.50 all the way up to $32.50 for a case of lettuce. Yeah. My lettuce price now has jumped to $103 a case.
They're hoping this high cost issue ends in the coming weeks, but if not, consumers should prepare for a potential price increase at the counter.
Tyson is recalling 94,000 pounds of ground beef due to pieces of mirror-like material found inside. The affected products are branded as Hill Country Fare in 5 and 10-pound containers of ground beef and ground chuck. The Department of Agriculture and Tyson have yet to explain what that mirror-like material is. More information on the recall is available on the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection website. Cold, cold, cold. Eric's coming back with his winter forecast next.
This Storm Tracker Storm Cam is brought to you by Tom Duma Fine Jewelers, the Mahoning Valley's premier jewelry destination.
Sleep last night.
All right, like it or not, it is that time. It's time to talk about winter. When we talk about winter, we're primarily speaking about December, January, and February, kind of the core winter months. And before we get to the forecast, let's review last winter. Last winter was not particularly snowy. At the airport, we had 60.8 inches worth of snow. That's about 7 inches below average. Temperatures last winter, 1.2 degrees above the average. We've actually had 7 consecutive mild winters now. We've had a couple of winters near average, 2017, 2018, 2020, 2021. Those were close, but still just a little above average. It's really been since the back-to-back cold winters, 2013 into 2014 and 15. It's been that long since we've had some legitimately cold weather in the winter season for more than just a week or two at a time. Well, for the third consecutive year, the primary driver for weather patterns as we head into the winter, La Nina. Typically, as we look across the Pacific Ocean, trade winds blow some of the warmest waters out west into the central Pacific. Well, in a La Nina, those trade winds become much, much stronger, and that actually not only blows the warm water off to the west, it brings up some cold water from underneath the ocean surface up to the surface of the ocean. What does this have to do with our winter weather? Well, this cold water can play around with the jet stream. It can play around with weather patterns across North America during the winter season. Let's start with a national view. Temperature-wise this winter, warmer than average temperatures favored in the southern tier of states, cooler than average weather favored certainly in much of Canada and down into the upper Midwest. Around here, we're on kind of that razor's edge between near average and perhaps below average temperatures for the winter as a whole. Just like every other winter, it's going to get cold at times, but for the winter as a whole, it may be close to average or a little bit cooler than the average. Snowfall, all these numbers are near average or maybe a little above average. And notice, of course, more snow to the north, less snow to the south. We do have a wide variety of snow totals usually in the winter across our area because of lake effect. Northern Trumbull, northern Mercer counties, 80 plus inches will be a possibility, down to about 25 to 40 inches in a lot of our southern viewing area. And again, a lot of these numbers are near the average or even a little bit above the average. Well, those are the most likely outcomes, those maps I just showed you. What are the chances of different types of outcomes this winter? Again, temperature-wise, highest odds near average, also cooler than average, lower odds of a warmer than average winter, and the odds of an extremely cold winter are not zero, but they are pretty low at about 10%. When we talk about snowfall, again, just like the map I showed you, the most likely outcome is a near average season in terms of snow. The odds of above average snowfall a little bit higher than the odds of below average snowfall. So I do think that this winter has a chance to be our coldest and snowiest winter since the winter of 2017 into 2018. Other kind of bottom line items here. This is a tricky forecast. We have some competing signals. I talked about La Nina. We look at a lot of other stuff other than La Nina, and some of those items would suggest a warm winter, but the focus of the winter is on La Nina this year, and specifically the type of La Nina it is tilts the odds, I think, in favor of near average temperatures or a little bit cooler than average temperatures. I think the biggest change compared to last year will be December. We had the 4th warmest December on record last year. This year will not be that warm. In fact, it could be a significantly colder December than last year. And winter could end pretty quickly, late in February into March. Depends on how fast La Nina fades away. We are expecting La Nina to weaken as we go through the winter. If that weakening occurs pretty quickly later in the winter, well, we could see a quick transition into spring in late February, early March, kind of like we had this year. If you remember this past winter, we had kind of a tough period in late January, early February, but by March, spring was already making its presence known. So that's the way it looks right now. Derek will have an update coming up in a few weeks.
Sounds good, Eric. Can't wait to see how this all plays out. And hey, early spring works for me. Thanks, Eric. Up next, a group of realtors teams up with a Valley nonprofit to bring some holiday cheer to kids in need.
But first, we have much more local news trending right now on our 21 News app. Sentencing is set for a Youngstown man who received a 7-pound shipment of cocaine. Driving with snow on your vehicle in Pennsylvania could land you with a $50 fine. And a statue to honor Youngstown civil rights leader Judge Nathaniel Jones will be unveiled in Cincinnati on Friday.
Hey everyone, tonight we have an all...
2 local realtor organizations joined forces to help out a Valley nonprofit.
Heartreach Neighborhood Ministries is getting ready for its big Christmas gift giveaway. And not only did they get some help in wrapping presents, but they also got a major donation.
Ready to spread holiday cheer.
Planning on giving out gifts to 700 children.
Members of the Youngstown Columbiana Association of Realtors and Beaver Creek Area Association of Realtors went to work Thursday at the Redondo Community Center in Youngstown.
Whatever fits in a bag, we're going to put in the bag.
Bagging and wrapping hundreds of Christmas gifts that'll be handed out next month by Heartreach Neighborhood Ministries.
My family have been involved with Heartreach for a long time, and we really want to give back to them. It's important to us.
Thank you all.
The realtors also presented the ministry a check for over $18,000, money raised from a golf outing and personal donations.
The kids really need our help. There's families that need our assistance, and being realtors, we're involved in the community greatly, and we want to make sure that we can give back the best that we can to our community.
Heartreach Neighborhood Ministries runs 3 community centers in the greater Youngstown area, and the money will be used to support their after-school Super Kids program.
Our goal is really to help to equip them to be successful in life. And we do that in a number of ways by teaching resiliency, how to set goals, as well as just to give them positive mentors and opportunities to figure out who they are.
Helping kids stay on the right path.
Oh, that's cute.
And get a little something special this Christmas.
Heartreach Neighborhood Ministries is always looking for donations and volunteers.
If you would like to help, just call the number on your screen. We also have that information for you up on our 21 News app. Next up on 21 Sports, YSU's playoff hopes are riding on this Saturday's game against Northern Illinois. We'll hear from Penguins head coach Doug Phillips after the break.
This Thanksgiving, anything must go.
Good evening, everyone. Well, the Steelers are coming off a win over the Saints and look to make it 2 in a row when they host the Bengals on Sunday. Now, you may remember that Pittsburgh won a thriller in overtime against Cincinnati in their season opener. Steelers wideout Deontay Johnson says when it's a division opponent, it's a must-win game.
Well, it's a big game. I'll say our rival game to me. Every time we play them, it's a good game, and everybody out there competing. AFC North football, so we got to win. Divisional game, we got to win this one. It's no excuses. So we got to be locked in this week, and we're going to be ready and focus on this game plan this week.
And with Buffalo bracing for about 3 feet of snow, possibly more, the NFL announced that Sunday's Bills and Browns game will be played at Ford Field in Detroit at 1 o'clock. Now, Browns coach Kevin Stefanski says it doesn't change much from a preparation standpoint.
I think for coaches and players, in any of those moments, you just deal with what's in front of you.
coaches and players, all we have to do is say, hey, go to this bus, get on this plane, go to this meeting. We don't have to do all the work that goes into it from the logistics standpoint. So we're creatures of habit. We're creatures of listening to whoever tells us to go in whichever direction they want us to go in. And I think for players and particularly the players, they're ready to adapt. That's what they do. And whatever comes our way, we'll be ready. But
well, for the second straight year, the Mahoning Valley has at least 4 teams in the football regional finals. Now, 2 teams will play on Friday and 2 on Saturday. In our Ainsley Heating and Cooling YSN matchup, Dana Balish tells us the area has proven good football is a part of our culture.
It says we're the real deal, Dana. At the end of the day, everybody talks at week 1, who's going to be the teams left over? Are we going to have any teams? How far are they going to go? And you and I sat here 14 weeks ago and said we're going to have some teams, and we have some teams.
Yoakley feels all 4 Mahoning Valley teams have a chance to move on and handicaps them this way.
Honestly, South Range has the easiest road. I mean, Perry matches up well against them, whether it's raining, snowing, or we're playing sunshine and 70 degrees. I like South Range's road to the state. Then I'm going to go with Warren JFK. So I think JFK has the second easiest road to the states. Then you look at the West Branch versus Jefferson game, you just never know. Then you got Canfield versus Chardon. We all know the ending of that story the last few years. This is a different Canfield team. They've got momentum after beating Ursuline.
Well, it all comes down to one final game for the YSU football team. The Penguins are 6-4 and host Southern Illinois in their regular season finale on Saturday. Now, Coach Doug Phillips, he's optimistic that YSU will make the playoffs if they pull off the win.
Our ultimate goal is to make the playoffs, and when you start the season 2 and 3, every game is critical. And now we get to November. I mean, this is what you work for. This is when we're in the off season. This is what we dreamt about when February 8th, taking the job and meeting with the team in 2020. This is what you dreamt about. This is the work that you put in to play a significant game in November. Probably 80% of the teams in America on Saturday aren't playing for much. And we have the opportunity to play for something very important.
And we finish up on the ice tonight as the Pens were in Minnesota taking on the Wild in first period. The captain goes to work. Sidney Crosby comes up with it. He puts it in. And just like that, it's 1-0 Pittsburgh. A little bit later in the first, the Pens on the rush here. Teddy Bluger to Ryan Poehling for the goal. 2-0 Pittsburgh. A couple minutes into the second period, Minnesota would get on the board here. Brandon Duhaime with the goal. 2-1 Pens. But it wouldn't be enough, though. The Pens get the win, 6-4, the final. Well, that's a look at sports tonight. We'll be back with more 21 News right after the break.
All right, losing our phone is the worst. We just get panicked when we misplace it. You're trying to retrace your steps, see where it was left behind.
Now imagine leaving it at an airport gate and not realizing until after you board the plane.
That was the predicament a Southwest Airlines passenger found themselves in, but their pilot went the extra mile to help them out. Check it out. The plane had already boarded, closed the doors, and pushed back from the gate. When ground crews contacted Southwest staff about the found phone, the pilot leaned out the cockpit window to grab it while a ramp worker on the ground jumped up to hand it to him. You can see the transaction take place right there.
That's what I call customer service.
I know, right? Somebody owes that whole crew, I think, a Christmas card.
Oh, definitely a Christmas card. Maybe a gift. All right, that does it for us tonight. For more local news, weather, and sports, download our 21 News app.
Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.